Hey y'all, Terry Gigi here. Today's video is going to be about a book that I've recently read. I kind of read it accidentally. I wasn't really planning on it, but it ended up being such a fascinating book. And then the very next book I read was equally fascinating in a totally different way, and I just have to talk about it to you. But today we're going to do kind of the easy book, and then in a couple of weeks I will address the other book I read that was, I will say, pretty much life-changing. It was an amazing novel. But the first one, let me tell you how I ended up reading it. I was looking for a new book on my Kindle. I have converted to Kindle for nighttime reading because I can't hold my book and my glasses and all the different things, So it makes Kindle quite easy. So I get my books from two places: Kindle Unlimited, which is a subscription. I think it's $10 a month for you can get free books. And my husband and I share that account because I only read like 2 novels a month or so, or 3. He reads tons more. And then I also use the public library, and you can get Kindle books from the public library delivered directly to your Kindle. It's really awesome. And so anyway, I was waiting on a book to come that I was wanting to read, and nothing good was available. So it was really cold. It has been so unseasonably cold here where I live, and I just put in the word winter and thought I'll just read a book about winter because I want to be all cozy in my bed and read about winter while I'm experiencing 20-something degrees outside, right? The first book that popped up was called The Long Winter, and it's a Little House on the Prairie book. And I thought, oh brother, okay, well, I read the original. It was a pretty good book. So I clicked on this one and I just started reading it. And y'all, it was so good. And the reason I want to share parts of it with you is to give you a little bit of perspective. I don't know if you're like me, but I can get so frustrated with supply chain and mask and shots and all the stuff that has affected our life because of the virus, right? It's just a lot of things that, you have to, like, we're fixing to go overseas. There's so much, this many hours before you have to be tested, and this many hours before you come back, you have to be tested. You have to have this document, you have to have this, and it's just a lot. And we can get frustrated because we're used to life being fairly easy before 2020. So I wanted to give you a perspective on what it was like in 1861, one cold winter. All right. It's called The Long Winter, and it's Laura Ingalls and her father, the family, and they're walking. It's the fall, and her father starts to notice a few things that were, I would show you the book, but I don't have it, and I've returned it, so I can't even show it to you on my Kindle. Their father and her were walking around, and he started noticing that some of the animals were acting differently. Some of the ducks and different birds were gone already, and it wasn't time. It was early in the season. And he started noticing this, and he would make little comments. Well, one day him and Laura were walking by this creek or river or something near their home, and he noticed this muskrat house, and it was built really different than the ones before. Really thick. It was built really bigger. It was thicker. He just noticed a difference, and he was telling Laura about it. And he started saying, I think we're going to have a tough winter this year. I really do. And she kept asking him questions. Okay, so they're walking and they're talking about this. And this is not about 2020, but this is interesting to think how God has equipped us and given us freedom on how we respond to different things and how we act about different things as they happen. So he told Laura, they're building this home, the muskrats have built, I don't even know what a muskrat is. I've never seen one or even thought about one, but he said they built this home, and it's going to be a tough winter. And she says, Pa, how can the muskrats know that? And he said, I don't know how they know, but they do. God tells them somehow, I suppose. And Laura says, then why doesn't God tell us? And Pa said, because we're not animals, we're human. And like it says in the Declaration, I'm quoting here, like it says in the Declaration of Independence, God created us free. That means we got to take care of ourselves. And Sora looked at him and said, I thought God takes care of us. And Pa said, he does, so far as we do what's right. And he gives us a conscience and brains to know what's right, but he leaves us to do as we please. That's the difference between us and everything else in creation. And Laura says, can't the muskrats do as they please? And Pa says, no, I don't know why, but they can't. And you can see that they can't. Look at the muskrat house. Muskrats have to build that kind of house. They always have, and they always will. It's plain they can't build any other kind, but folks can build all kind of houses. A man can build any kind of house he can think of. So if his house doesn't keep, he says, don't keep the weather, that's his lookout. He's free and independent. Pa thought for a minute and said, come on, Half Pint, we better make hay while the sun shines. So he was telling her, you know, as a human, you're free to make your plans, to read the tea leaves, to figure out what to do for your family or whatever, to prepare for what you think might be coming. You're free to do that. Now, that was a great lesson spoken, I thought, so beautiful. I copied this out of there so beautifully about it's our responsibility as humans to accept what comes and adjust and do what we need to do to make the best of the situation. So in the book, an Indian comes into town, and at this point they weren't warring with the Indians, but they didn't mix with them at all. An Indian came in town, and he started doing all these motions in the general store where a bunch of the men were, and he explained to them that it's going to be a bad winter, and there's a bad winter every 7 years, but this is the 28th year, and that's when it's an extra bad winter. And for some reason, these people believed him. They believed him that because he was doing all these motions to, say this. And so I actually looked it up on the internet, and this was a real thing. Her story is true. It's a story of her growing up, and this actually happened. This winter actually happened in this part of our country way back then. It's one of the worst winters to this day that they've ever had on record. So when you are told that this is climate change, it's happened before. Some of the things that are happening to us are not unprecedented, but they seem that way because in our lifetime we haven't seen it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying it's not a thing. I'm just saying. Okay. So they moved into town to prepare because they didn't want to live out where they were. They moved into town. Evidently, he had a building there or something. And so almost everyone moved into town, and that wasn't a lot of people. I think there was 28 or 30 people in this town that moved in for the winter. So they start making the best of it, and they get moved in. They get their furniture in, and like a day later, it starts snowing way before time. This is like October, early October, and it usually starts in November. So I won't go into detail, but the snow went on and on and on and on. And the story is just gripping, y'all, of how cold they were, how over time the train could not come anymore in to bring supplies. So whatever you had put back for your family was all you had. And the interesting thing was, no one in that town came to expect anyone else to give them what they had for their family. No one expected a handout at all. And I thought that was quite interesting. Whatever you had, right? Now, Pa does go and buy some grain for a guy, but he just sits there and he makes the deal and he makes the deal and he makes the deal, and he paid a good price, but he got some grain. But anyway, there was no train. You couldn't ever hardly have company because it would snow for 3 days solid, and it would be dark in the daytime. It would be dark with the blizzard. and you couldn't go outside at all during that time, but they even had ropes strung up if you wanted to cross the street. It was that bad that you would lose your way crossing the street. That's how bad it was. So they couldn't have company, so it was just them. And it was very for a while it went okay, and Paul would play his, I forget, fiddle or something. And then Christmas came and they had no Christmas. And then the food started getting lower and lower and lower. And y'all, I'm telling you, this might be a kid's book, but my heart, I mean, at one point I was just like almost hyperventilating. If I knew they made it, but it was really well written. So they had really low food. Towards the end, the darkness was just overwhelming. And the noise of the blizzard was so overwhelming that they could barely stand it. And you know, this was kind of written by Laura, so you were getting her perspective. They got to the point where they had to stay in bed to stay warm. And towards the very end, it got so bad that they were starting to even think funny. I think they were starving. They had bread and they had water, but that was about maybe a little bit of tea. But they were starving. They were just starving, and the sound of this going on for 4 or 5 months, and the numbness of it, and I think they had where they could go see people in town one time in this whole blizzard. They had freedom to go around, and the sun came out, and they had a snow fight. But anyway, my point of telling you this story is A, it's a really good book, but B, as things happen in our world, you know, everything might turn around and be rosy next year. I don't know. But you need to think about possibilities of what could happen and be prepared. Be prepared, because you don't want to be without for the people in your family, the people that are living with you. And I would even be prepared with extra if possible. Just for the fact that food is going up so rapidly, the price of food, you know, why not stock up some now while it's a little bit cheaper? I mean, you'll have to replace it at some point, but you know, some stores are really having bare shelves. Not completely at all, but is this a precursor? I don't know. And I'm not trying to be a doomsdayer, but why not be prepared? Why not? Because we have warning. You know, they got warning from that Indian, and they listened to him, and they prepared. Being prepared doesn't hurt anything, even if nothing happens. You'll go, oh wow, we have a lot of food to eat now before it expires, you know. So that's my reason for sharing this book with you. And also, their faith in God was quite strong. They read from the Bible, of course, every day. Some of the things that the children, how they were treated, man, we've come a long way from that. Like, Laura got really upset one day about something because she was just losing it. And her mother said something to her like, Laura, have self-control. Don't something and have self-control, you know? Calm down, because it doesn't do you any good to go there, right? And it was just a good book. Now, I don't know if this video will mean anything to you, but I just wanted to share it. And a quick update. I've been doing my beauty calendar, my routine that I told y'all I was going to start. And the other day I was going somewhere, I think just to town. And for some reason that day, it was right after that video, I put on some earrings. I wore a really cute shirt. I put a necklace on. I fixed my hair extra. I picked up one of my purses I never use that's super cute that I forgot about, a designer purse. I carried that purse. I felt like $1 million. So let's pay attention to our inside heart, our outside appearance, how we dress, and I think it'll make us all feel so much better. It's working for me. I feel so much better about everything since I just started taking control. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will talk next week. Bye-bye.